Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Now today we are going to enter into the theme of Muamalat, but let me just recall some of the ideas that we have covered in the 2 previous days. We started by speaking about riba and understanding what is riba. And then we said any knowledge that comes to us, like for example riba, knowledge of riba, it becomes modified by our own condition. We know by our own condition. If you want to understand riba, it is going to depend on what is your state. Depending how you are, you will understand deeper. Depending how you are, you will hear it, and it doesn't mean anything to you. If your state is different, you will be able to act. And in the same way that we said, the world is a mirror to you. When it comes to problems, it's very clear. But when it comes to opportunities or possibilities, it's also the same. Some people don't see any possibility. Some people see more possibilities. Some people see everything as a possibility. Some people see this is possible. Some people will say it is difficult. Some people will say it is easy. Some people say we can go that far. Also people say we can only move very little. We can go to the very end of the affair. We can just withdraw. We can fight the big enemy, or we can just reduce everything to a personal affair. You can socialize the affair, you can minimalize it. You can fight the World Bank, or you can just reduce the matter to your own personal affair. That all depends on you. It depends on your state. So knowledge is therefore is your own state. And that depends on the condition of your heart. And as you change, if you become aware of that, then this is not an intellectual matter. As you will notice, the question of riba is very simple to understand. And the things I'm going to explain to you now, they are very simple to understand. It's almost offensively. It's offensive how simple it is. And how Islam explains this matter is incredibly simple. Because it's true. Only the lies are complicated. Because they need so many ifs and so many perhaps that becomes complicated. But Islam is simple. The simplicity of Islam is part of its beauty. And how we can reduce all these big affairs to very simple matters. In fact, simple words that they will allow us to understand complex situations is extraordinary. So we ended up yesterday by affirming that the matters of knowledge, they are not in the observer, but in the being observed. It is in that condition that you become aware that you are the one tested. Life is the test. We are here to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in as much as this becomes deeper and deeper in you, the more you will see outwardly. And that is a reflection upon, naturally, your own inner state. If you are incapacitated outwardly, then you are incapacitated inwardly. If you cannot see, it means that there is something that is withholding you inwardly. So if you want to see the condition of somebody, see what they do. You are what you do. Not what you say you do, but what you do. And what is your engagement, and what is your attitude, and what is your activity is a pure reflection of your inner condition. Then the rest, if you understand this, that you have the basis of understanding how to go deeper into the subject. Some people, and the reason I mentioned this thing at the very beginning of this lecture is because after I finish this, you're going to say, but it's so simple. There must be more. There's no more. The more is you. I can be talking about this thing for 20 hours. but it will be the reflection of how I take these very simple concepts, and therefore I can say they can translate into this and this and this. Basically, everything can be altered on the basis of these simple concepts. The world is complex, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is simple. It's easy to understand. To understand the world is complicated. To understand Allah is easy. And His commands are easy. And the model of Medina is easy to understand. Well, having said this thing, let's go into what Muamalat is. Muamalat, as we affirmed at the beginning, is the amal of the Ahl al-Medina. The model is the amal of the Ahl al-Medina. At the time when Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, now the deen is complete. And this is very important from the point of view of the chronology, because the deen is complete when Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam dies. Up until then, it's developing. When Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam dies, that is the completion of the deen. So logically, it is the time that happens immediately after. That's why the time of the companions and the tabi'in and the tabi'in, these three generations, they call it, they are critical to us, because this is the time that it was lived with in Islam, that it was complete. Everything was in place. So this time of the first three generations in the city of Medina, this is what we call the Ahl al-Medina, and the amal of the Ahl al-Medina means the practice of the people of Medina. That is what we then will use as a model to speak about Muamalat. Now, what are our sources? How do you look into this? Well, the sources are the ones that we have, the written account of the people of the time, and the practice, a background practice that has been carried out through centuries. The fatwas and the books, etc., they all will help us. But here, what is important, what is the emphasis here, is how we looked into it. And again, this is what we said yesterday, your condition. If you look into the city of Medina like an anthropologist will, anthropologist meaning this is the ancient culture of some indigenous Arabian people in the city of in the Arabian Peninsula, in the desert, at this particular time and in these particular circumstances. And then, so they look into the matter and then they come up to the conclusions they want to see from an anthropological point of view. Here, the most immediate problem is that we will be assessing what they do with the anachronisms of the society that we are living in. And it has always been a problem when you examine history, that you are examining it from the perspective of the century that you are living in. In our case, will be Western culture looking down is important into the Arabian Peninsula, and all this work is what Orientalism has brought to us. It's a European perspective of who we are, and they were quite dedicated to the job, and it was had a political dedication. It was sustained, maintained by the different states in order to not only obtain a perception of the people that they were going to conquer or they had already conquered, but also to tell the people that they have been conquered what the religion is. And that is unique of the British. The assumption to teach what Islam is. Well, I mean, this is happening today with Islamic economics. It's being taught, it's being prepared, it's being cooked in the West and then filtered here in the form of universities. But Orientalism had a very, very big weight into how we perceive ourselves, and that perception has carried on through the centuries. Many things, they are the reflection of this. And I will argue, as we will see, that the way modernists looked into the practice of the people, and in general the matters of Muamalat, was always seen from that European perspective. The same people that they were saying were against the West, but in fact they were carrying the venom of the West. So we want to avoid anachronisms. We don't want to interpret the city of Medina from the perspective of the society we are living in. So we don't want to say things like, for example, when we read in a hadith, and the people, Omar paid 20 dinar to Ahmed in the city of Tatatan. An anachronism will be say, well, the dinar is like the US dollar. It's just a jump. Just say, well, it's just money. So today we have ringgit. In those days, they had gold dinar. Or if they say, and they went to the market of blah blah blah, the souk of they say, yeah, it's like when we go to the Carrefour. We go to the supermarket, we go to the mall, and that's exactly what happens. It's the same. The things that they are a little bit more complicated, like caravan, etc., etc., well, because we overpass that. There's no further commentary on the matter except we don't need it. If since our society doesn't have it, it means we don't need it. The guilds, for example, they are seen from that perspective an evolution. Things of the past, going back to the past, the whole idea of are you going back to some ancient thing? And the modern, the idea of something modern, which is like the way the things are done today. Implicitly in these categories is the idea that something is better than the other. Whatever is past is bad and whatever is new is better. If you examine the amal from that perspective, then you end up with Islamic economics. It will not take you, it will not too hard. I mean, and if you think, and you should think that I'm exaggerating because what I'm saying is even hard for me to say. But if you think I am, I'm really not. I remember the first time I came to Malaysia and I was speaking about Islamic banking, blah, blah, blah. And I told them Islamic banking is haram. And I remember everybody was very quiet. It was in Johor, the state, Johor state company. And then there was a silence and everybody was like waiting. Nobody asked any questions and they were waiting for the mufti. Who was there? I didn't know. To come and say something. And so he asked the first question, but it was the question itself. It reflected his state of mind, because he didn't argue anything of the things I was saying. He just simply stood up and he said, "My dear friend, I understand what you are saying, but of course you have to look at where Islamic banking came from. And of course it came from Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You don't know, but when Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made Qirat with Khadija, that was the beginning of Islamic banking. You see? Okay, thank you." And he sat down. I was speechless. I wasn't prepared for that. It's just unbelievable.
That was the Mufti.
Mufti. The Mufti of Johor. This is in 1980 something. And the talk, it was in the Johor State Company, which is the largest state company in
Johor Corporation.
And there was about 200 people. It was quite a big crowd. And that's what I got. I mean, it's almost what.
How do you argue with that?
Well, once I recovered from the shock, I tried to explain to him that there is an enormous difference between Qirat and what banking is doing today. Banking is a very different phenomenon, and he didn't really take it well. But there was other questions, and he just, with his biggest smile, he was just saying like he doesn't understand. This is an example of anachronism. I mean, brutally, but it's not different. For example, when the first book written about monetary systems in Islam by Omar Chapra is called The Just Monetary System. And I bought it back in the 80s as well. And I was trying to look for something really sophisticated and interesting on the subject. The book is written for 12-year-olds who had some kind of mental paralysis in the process. I mean, the kind of argumentation that he makes in order to prove that the US dollar is okay is unbelievable. It's like, we had this thing in the past, but we have already evolved, and we have something, modern systems of payment, that they facilitate the things that are so much better, and therefore we have no paper money, and the US dollar is what we have. And that's the end of the argument. It doesn't go any further. There's no analysis, there's no comparison, there is no even an attempt of understanding what it was that it was happening in those days. Nothing. Now, this book of Al-Chapra is the basis, is the first book on the subject that then triggered down through the Islamic Foundation in Leicester, and with Khurshid Ahmed and all the Jamaat al-Islamiyya, the whole idea of Islamic economics. Then some Malays went there, they learned, they brought it here, and they started in the International Islamic University. And everything built up out of foundational fantasies based on an anachronism. So what we are trying to do is to avoid that. So in order to avoid that, what we attempt to do is to try to walk in the streets of Medina. It's we leave everything behind.
Time machine.
And mentally, we try to recreate the institutions the way they were, without any attempt to translate them, if possibly, with a particular interest in the terminology. Don't change the terminology. If it says souk, use souk. Don't use mall. Okay? If you say dinar, stick to dinar. Not just money or paper money or whatever. If it says wadia, stick to wadia. Stick to the terminology, because the terminology represents something very peculiar and is our grounding of this affair. And if we stick to these institutions and try to understand them from within, then something starts coming into shape. So what we are doing is a little bit like when an architect wants to build a condominium, and they will do a maquette, a small representation of the buildings. Now imagine that we are doing precisely that we are trying to put in a maquette the city of Medina and try to recreate, well, this is how the people did things. So in doing that, what we're trying to do is trying to put the hadith within the contextual reality. Let's try to recreate that environment where the things were taking place. Because some things are require a little bit more concentration, but others are very simple. Like, for example, if you read gold dinar, stick to gold dinar. What is a gold dinar? And then you say, okay, it's a gold coin. And then it has the weight, it's called mithqal, and it has 4.25 grams. And it was used in the city of Medina, together with the dirham, which was a silver coin. And the weight was the 7/10 of the mithqal. And there were the two currencies that they were more common in the city. And there was another one called the fulus, which was basically a fiat value to the lowest denomination of the dirham. And it was of it had no standards. They kept changing it. So it was a small change. And it has some rules. So dinar, dirham, fulus. Then you understand that people also it was common to use barley and dates as means of payment. So there was certain items, food items, particularly cereals, that they had the same function as we understand today for money. It doesn't take, it's not very hard to imagine that there was no legal tender in those days, because that is an anachronism. It's an entire anachronism. In those days, they didn't have this sort of law, so you start putting it back together. So if the people were free to choose, and then if the people were free to choose, and there was no exceptionality, there's nowhere exceptionality in the matter. Obviously, the people were free to choose. They chose freely. And they just start putting together just simply by the fact that you're looking at the things as they are explained. So you look at the dinar, then you go a little bit further. But where is the dinar? That's the question. Where is that gold dinar? And then you say the nisab. The nisab of zakat is calculated in gold dinar. So it's quite important actually. It's mentioned in Quran. Where is the gold dinar? Now the next thing is, where is the souk? They went to the souk of this. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went to Medina, he made a mosque and a market and a souk. And he said the souk is a sadaqah to the people. The sunnah of the masjid is like the sunnah of the mosque, of the market. There's no taxation, there's no shops, just like you do not expect in a mosque somebody marking the space. The same thing in the marketplace. It's a waqf to the people, it's a sadaqah to the people. It's a public property, a market which is public property, there's no taxation, there is no space, there's no private ownership. You start seeing. And they just said, wow, in fact, this institution repeats throughout time. I mean, we see this pattern repeating and repeating. The big cities on all the Arabian Peninsula, in Damascus and Aleppo, etc., big marketplaces, public institutions, never privatized. So the idea that is Carrefour, no, because then you have a criteria to look into the matter that you never had before. This is not a souk. Then you can go a little bit farther, so we will go later. So you see, what we are doing is here focusing on the words and the institutions that they are represented by these words. The caravan. What is the caravan? Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when he was making that kirat, the word kirat, again, word looking into the matter, he made a kirat with Khadija. Then he did it because he was in a caravan. He was an agent in a caravan. The job of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was a caravan agent. If you want to speak about the sunnah profession, that's trader, a caravan trader. That is the sunnah. So we do all kind of things for Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, including the beard. So if somebody tells you what is his profession, the answer is he was a caravan trader. So quite logically, the next question is, what is a caravan? And you have certain things to look into. First of all, there is a word called kafila, and it's mentioned in Quran. And we know it was the practice of the people, and it started from a market and it went to a market. It was not a corporation, it was not owned by somebody. It was the caravan of the city of Medina. It represented an organization of the people of Medina. The participation, it seemed to be quite an important participation. People participated in the kirat in small amounts, and they gave it to people that they had trust with, the amin. They trusted Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and money was given to him, not only by Khadija but other people. And the instrument was kirat, the caravan. The caravan had a caravansarais, a section in the marketplace that we have seen then in other markets in bigger cities than Medina, where there was a distinctive place that it represented a space for the caravan, for the people to come. And they were the guests of the market, like in the Muawiya is mentioned that Omar ibn Khattab used to say, the trader that comes from abroad is the guest of Omar ibn Khattab. Now, is the guest of Omar ibn Khattab is the way of saying you are invited. And the practice of the 3 days, the caravans, for 3 days that were invited, is common, it recurs throughout history. So here you have another word, the caravan. What is the caravan? And it is gone. This is an institution that we don't have a kind of the Carrefour of this. The only thing that we have today is sport companies, perhaps, or logistic companies, that they do something that is partly similar to this. But there is no an institution, caravan or something similar left. But it's still important. It's still important because, for example, when we speak about the contracts, the kirat, we know that the practice of the people of Medina is that all the kirat happen through the caravans. The normal way, 99.99% of all the contracts is somebody investing in somebody who's going in the caravan. That's how kirat was done. So, kirat and the caravan, they go together. If you take the caravan away, kirat doesn't have an environment where it exists. Like if you take the market away, the caravan doesn't have a place to come, because you cannot go to a Carrefour. So here you have the first principle of subsidiary ideas. So in other words, they are all interlinked. And without this idea, I cannot understand this and this and this and the other. And without this, I cannot understand this and this and this. For example, if you don't have the marketplace, you cannot understand the caravan. If you don't understand the caravan, you cannot understand Kirat. You see? And then what do? Then you start planting Kirat outside its natural environment. And this is where the mess starts coming in. Things like we will discuss today, hopefully, the non-collateral nature of Kirat has disappeared, simply because it's not practical anymore. Simply because it's decontextualized. In the context of this modern environment, it cannot happen. But the answer is not to transplant it, but to recreate those conditions again. Right? So, by not doing anachronism, but avoiding trying to interpret that society from our perspective, we are getting into the city of Medina and trying to understand it the way it was. Literally, to walk in the streets of Medina. I've done this thing many times. When a transaction was it was slightly complex, I tried to visualize. The people are sitting down there, and they are using coins, and they are paying that, and this is how it's happening, and it allows me to understand. Well, this is what the exercise is. And let's look into what institutions come across almost instantly. And of course, there are tons of them, but I'm going to speak about the ones that they carry the most weight. Number one, without any question, is the souk. The souk is the most important institution of trading. Now, some people say, but there is no one hadith that says, and you have to build souks. It's like there's no hadith that says you have to breathe air. It's the kind of thing that is so taken for granted that nobody's going to go there and start messing up. That is, when it's mentioned passing by. The marketplaces had been, even before Islam, public marketplaces. There was no the idea of a privatized marketplace. The Romans before the Muslims and the Greeks before the Muslims, they had public marketplaces, the agoras and the forums. Public marketplaces, the idea that trading is a right of the people. You have a society and the people have the right to trade for free. And a space is allocated where the people can do the transactions. Not only that, if the society evolves in wealth, in importance, then this marketplace is going to start building up facilities to make the trading more comfortable for both traders and customers. The idea that, for example, you will have building space and you will have storages for the different traders, and you will have allocated space for caravans. You can see how it can evolve, and you can have differentiated storage space depending on what kind of goods, luxury goods or cheap goods. And you can have sections of the market depending on what you are trading, so that there is a section that is for products of, the first differentiation that I have seen is luxury and non-luxury, but then smelly products and non-smelly products, and then things that they require volume and they don't require volume. And all these things will affect how the market evolves and the location of the market. For example, all the animals, the big trading, which will be today selling cars, for example, you need a vast space for that. You need a long, big space. And it was done always in the outskirts of the city, sometimes extramuros, meaning outside the walls. And the Romans have this market that it was outside the walls and inside the walls. And quite naturally, if you think about a natural expansion of the marketplace, what today is outside, in 100 years' time, is inside the city. No? Like some of the neighbourhoods of Kuala Lumpur, they were in the outskirts, and now they're part of Kuala Lumpur. No? We have seen that in every big city. Imagine the expansion of the city of Istanbul. And the city of Istanbul, because it's in a corner against the market, it can only grow inwards. So you can see the markets kind of exiting, like from here, they keep going out and out and out as the city keeps growing. So there's a kind of linear thing of the marketplaces. The same thing when the city is like Isfahan, the marketplace here, but it keeps growing this way and this way and this way. And from here to here in Isfahan is 2 kilometers of marketplace. Is that it keeps going to the outskirts. And what happens is that all markets become specialized. So you need more space and you keep specializing the markets. Depending on the wealth of the city, the interest of the governors, then they will make more beautiful markets. Just like the mosques, you see the importance of the city by the beauty of the mosque. And that was a reflection of the wealth of the people of the city, etc., etc. And you will see with the marketplaces, some of them, they are palaces, spectacular palaces, that makes today our malls look like warehouses. If you look at, for example, the capalicarsi, just you have to imagine that this building has been there for 700 years. It's an extraordinary 400,000 square meters. It's 400 meters by 1 kilometer long of covered market space with 23 caravansarais. So from that sophistication to what would have been the market of Medina, which was probably just a simple allocated space, perhaps with some sheds that they would have developed over time. And in fact, this became a major issue as by the time of Muawiya, the markets are growing and there is a necessity to allocate the space. And they make a compromise. They say you don't own it, but if you keep coming regularly, you can have the same location. And this was a big controversy because some people said this is the end. If you do that, that's the end. There will be no recovery. Well, it wasn't the end, but you can see that there was some people that they defended this thing with great passion. So the souk. Why is the souk the most important? Because it's the house of trading. It's the mosque and the souk. And now, just to give the relative importance this thing had, a good way of looking into the amal of the people of Medina is just to say, just to have a quick look, but instead of looking at New York, just look at the Islamic societies. Possibly during the time in which Islam was strong, when the Sharia was implemented, how did our societies look like? So when you look at Istanbul, and then you say, this is the souk. Of course, it's so different from what it would have been in Medina, but it gives you a little bit the patterns there of what the whole thing was about and how it could possibly evolve with time. The key is public ownership. Never changed. It took Ataturk to nationalize, to actually privatize the market of the Grand Bazaar. He sold it. But before, it had been a waqaf. Now this waqaf business, you can see throughout history. The marketplaces have been waqaf. So we have here a first characteristic, which is very important. One can look into the whole idea of waqaf. Waqaf is a very important institution, again, part of the amal. It's worth understanding it. Mosques are waqaf and markets are waqaf. And one of the things that you see is when you come to the Ottomans is that every time they developed either a neighborhood in the further extension of Istanbul, for example, the Barrio Fatih, they developed Fatih, or when they conquered Sarajevo in Bosnia. In both cases, for the new neighborhood, as in the case of a new conquered land, in both cases, they developed something they call imaret. And the imaret is a complex. Today, in Kulia, they call it in Turkey too, the mosque complex. But the word imaret, according to Inalcik, is the most original. And in those days, the idea of a mosque and market mosque, market, as the center of the city of the new neighborhood. So when the Muslims conquer a land or want to create, they make a mosque and a market. Mosque and market, wherever you go, mosque market, mosque market, mosque market. Mosque and market together. Like Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he made a mosque and a market together. This is creating the basis of a city. And Ibn Khaldun, quite witty, he said, if you want to know one period of prosperity is followed by one of decadence, if you want to know what time you're living in, go to the marketplace. If the marketplace is owned by a few families, then you're at a time of rapid decadence. If the marketplace is owned by everybody, you are in a time of rapid prosperity. Prosperity and the freedom of the marketplace is an interesting concept. That prosperity is bound to the freedom, that this marketplace is not owned, is not privatized. And we have other indications, like for example the hadith of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam saying that 9/10 of the risk, 9/10, that's a lot. 9/10 of the risk comes from trading. 90% of the GDP comes from trading. It's like, this is the heart of the affair. Keep trading. If you trading nations, they're prosperous nations. And we know the example of that. And our society and our if you want to see the model of society is very much centered upon cities and very much centered upon market cities, trading cities. And this model of the trading city is characteristic of the Islamic civilization. Characteristic. What it will distinguish a trading city, what makes a city being qualified as trading city? The marketplace. The marketplace are the caravansarais. The logic is, if you don't have a marketplace, what happens? Well, it's not a city, it's a settlement. A city only is when a marketplace is there. This is how radical the idea is. I mean, radical in the sense they are radical to us. For them, it was natural. So natural that they didn't need to have to describe something the nature of which is logical. You know, that everybody must have the right to go to the marketplace and trade. That you don't have to have a license or a membership or a condition or price or rent. But everybody, just because you're a citizen, you have the right to go to the marketplace and buy and sell. It's open, it's accessible. These are the conditions of the marketplace. Just like you go to the mosque. Exactly the same way. So what happened to the souk? It has disappeared. It has been replaced by something else. Now, the idea of saying the souk now has evolved, and that this is the old days because they were primitive. That's Orientalism. That is when you hear that, when you hear Muslims saying that, they have been claiming wami. They are speaking from the teachings, the influence of the Orientalist ruler that is still in their heads. And it's still common among the people to say, if you say, for example, gold dinar, if I go and say gold dinar in the West, they say, wow, this is so interesting. If you say gold dinar to the Arabs, they say, my God, you know, this is the people of the past. Do you want to take us back to where we were? Backwards thinking, backwards. That's how they see it. They are not joking. They really mean it. And this attitude towards their own tradition is part of what modernism did to them. This attitude that anything coming from the West is good, and you know, everything is put in the same basket: electricity and the banks. No, so they say to be modern you have to take technology, and they inside this idea of technology, the whole package came in without differentiation. They couldn't tell, yes, electricity may be good, but if that is good, they couldn't say the bank, on the other hand, is something else. They couldn't do that distinction. And of course, once you take, when the thing I said to you yesterday, remember, what you know depends on your own state. If your state is that psychological inferiority, then it doesn't matter what they throw at you. you're going to see that the only thing that it matters is something that comes from America or the West, or is validated by them. And you have implicitly a despise of the things, anything that comes from you, because it's already seen as something backwards and blah, blah, blah. Now, if you take that attitude, then logically you cannot think. You cannot think. Again, we have to go back to that second day and the very idea of knowledge. But the people in the West, they are very interested in this. And the marketplaces now that they have proven, it has been proven now, that the supermarkets are bad for the people. And there are studies in the United States, you can download them, university studies proving that you open a Walmart and within 5 years the standards of living of the population in the vicinities goes down. We know immediately that the shops disappear. I saw it in Britain with Margaret Thatcher. She killed every year 60,000 shops and shops and shops and shops disappearing. And the way she justified it is that the elimination of the non-competitive businesses. It's like in the same way they say today, you know, when they're printing money, they say quantitative easing. It's just, this kind of sophismas. This is kind of cover up the crime. The elimination of the non-competitive business is beautiful. And with that agenda, Britain was transformed overnight. I mean, I was living in Inverness, and a city that it was, you know, still a little bit of Scottish. You have the McDougall haggis and the shop of this and the shop of that and overnight, Tesco arrives, and then Inverness became just like Birmingham or Leicester or anything. The same shops, the same trades, the same thing, and the whole thing disappeared. Now, that the West is becoming aware of it should not be the reason why we do it. It's simply an indication of what is wrong with that. It's not that this thing is not known, okay? It's not that you cannot read it. And that you translate this thing into a Carrefour is quite amazing. That you ignore all the little bits, like for example, it was public, and it was a waka, and you just kind of jump into this other thing, is quite extraordinary. It takes a lot of mental brainwashing. And this is where we are. So this is what the situation of most of the people are. But here we have our financial institution. Now the second most important importance, of course, is also relative. I'm sure that in those days, if they had to list what institutions are more important, probably may use a different. They may start with Kirat. Kirat was a very important institution, but for us, it's more important to explain it this way because we lost it. I mean, I would put the second as the dinar. The dinar and dirham. Important simply because of its impact. These, you have to look at it versus paper money. The Arabs are so extraordinary that they have some paper money now denominated in dinar. Like for example, the currency of Tunisia and Algeria and Kuwait is dinars. People said 20 dinars.
Bahrain is a dinar.
You know, and it doesn't occur to any one of the present Arabs, you know, to say to themselves, "Hang on a minute," you know. You know, this dinar of Tunisia keeps going down in value, and they keep printing and printing. It doesn't occur to anyone to say, "Hold on, I promised to pay you 20 dinars. Why don't we go to the bank and ask them to pay us?" It doesn't occur to them. The reason why it doesn't occur to them is that if they do, they will be seen as backwards. They will be insulted in that way. I saw this thing in UAE. When I went to, the first time we presented the gold dinar, in the way it was in the year 1999. It was in one of these Dubai shopping festivals, and we managed to convince Dubai Customs to host the launching of the gold dinar. Our intention was to get one Arab to buy one carpet using gold dinar, which we did. And in order to make the event to happen, the gold dinar is being used in the Arabian Peninsula once again. And we did it, but it was in the aftermath of this event that I was speaking with the Minister of Islamic Affairs, and he was quite positive on the beginning of these issues, but then he gathered some other ulama, and I talked to them, and they were quite happy. But then they had a meeting with some representative in the government, and the representative of the government scolded them. He didn't argue with them, scolded them. He really let them have it. And when they came back, they were like somebody who has been beaten. And they never recovered. Because the position of that person, which I prefer not to mention, that person was in personal great authority to actually let them have it. For even asking. That the dirham, where is the dirham? That's the central bank. And you know what that person lied to them and told them? We have the silver in the bank, in the central bank. And however the impact of that conversation was, he never talked to me again. Not on this subject. And he had promised to me to allow me to speak, to put some posters in the city about the payment of dinar and dirhams. And he allowed me, I forced him to sign and put him out. Never mind. But he never gave the khutbah that he promised me to give. Instead, he went to Mecca and had Umrah. But this is the encounter. You see, this is like kind of they're going back to some past that for some strange reason is seen as problematic. You know, if you look at, for example, the society of Abu Dhabi, and any one of you who hasn't seen the pictures of Abu Dhabi in the 60s, when you see still the 25 huts of fishermen who were beside the beach, and that was Abu Dhabi at that day, and you see it today, then you say, wow, they have a good reason to say, I don't want to go back there. But it's all features in cement. There is no understanding. You cannot put into that argumentation the din of Islam itself. And that's what they have done. They have seen the huts and the new building. And they see the old Islam and this new softened Islamic economics, the Islamization of capitalism. Sorry, Abdullah, what do you want to say?
I just wanted to ask you whether the priorities of the souk being first and the dinar dirham being second. Have you always thought that, or was there a time when you thought it was the other way around?
Well, it's because I've never said it. When I put the numbers, I always start with the gold dinar, I think. But I've never presented it in terms of importance. That's what I'm doing. The numbering today reflects importance quite normally when I write about these things. I just do it just without any sense of. I put it in the comments. No, I don't think I have changed on this. I mean, the relative importance also reflects where you are in the globe.
Yeah, because when you were in Cape Town, correct me if I'm mistaken, but your priority was more the market, right?
Yeah, I believe in the West, this is the priority.
Yeah.
I think it's also a priority here. But it depends on conditions, it depends on so many things. I mean, here is a little bit abstract. When tomorrow and the day after tomorrow we talk about implementation, we can look into how do we make these ideas to have a political weight. And what does it mean to have a political weight? How can this become a discourse for the people? Something that it divides. It makes the people aware and makes the people conscious. Now, when we speak about the politics of this, we may come stronger into this point of the numbers. But here, we're still at the level of trying to understand what we are dealing with. Now, dinar and dirham. You all know dinar and dirham, so I can go very fast on this. gold, silver, What is the key? The key question is, if somebody asks you, why is the gold dinar haram? Paper money haram? Why is paper money haram? Okay, now what is your answer?
You said yesterday, or before yesterday, Amana. You said freedom.
Okay, that's one point.
Freedom, Amana.
Freedom, that's the second point.
And
Anything else?
Riba.
And the question of riba too, yes. Okay, there's the 3 points. Now, let's start one by one. The question of amana. Okay, can anybody explain what do we mean by this? Muhammad.
Allah says in the Quran, do not trust or give amana, your wealth, to the non-Muslim. So they are not in the position to hold for us the wealth. So by using paper money, we are saying keep the gold for us, and we use the paper.
Do you have access to the Quran here? Can you check it out? Just check the word Quran, dinar, and you will come to the ayat, and please recite it for us.
75. Al-Imran 75.
Okay, the argument is like this: is the legal judgment derived from the ayat of Quran, and it comes from Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi, Ahkam al-Quran, the commentary on this ayat, and he says, the ayat says, there are some among the people of the book that if you give them 1 quintar, they will give it back to you, but some of them, if you give them 1 dinar, they will not return it to you, and therefore, unless they are under your foot, meaning under the Sharia. And the hukum of this is that it is not allowed for the Muslims to have amana with the people and so on. Why is this of any significance? Because that's how it all started. When you have a British pound, somebody is telling you, and we will pay you £1. Now, do they give it back to you? No. If they would have followed Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi, this thing would have never happened. So in other words, what it says is that to accept $1 is forbidden. Now, imagine the legal impact of the words that I just said. To accept a pound is forbidden. To accept anything that comes from a secular society, not just Islamic, secular society, because Pakistan is not an Islamic society, you cannot accept. Unless they are under the Sharia, which leave us with what? Nobody. So amana, you don't take amana, because I will not pay it back to you. But the particular case of paper money, the specific of paper money, is a pure amana. The Bank of France will pay you 1 livre, or 1 franc. And when? They did for a while, partially, as we know, what fractional reserve banking is, until they fancy that these people are so mesmerized by us that even if we don't pay them, they will continue using it. Bingo, they were right. The Muslims were completely anesthetized of any understanding of what money is. Anesthetized meaning they have no living memory of this subject. And how do I know? Because you know my history. Now, the question of amana comes first. The second is which one do you mention second?
Freedom. Or riba.
Yeah, and then the other one third. Freedom. The basis of this is, okay, Neil, explain it.
We have to choose a mean of
Mention the ayat of Quran that relates to this issue.
I forgot the beginning.
Tijaratun.
Tijaratun an taradin minkum.
Okay, say it again.
Tijaratun an taradin minkum.
Okay, this is how you pronounce it, not the way I do. Tijaratun an taradin minkum, which means tijaratun, trade with mutual consent, or something of the nature. Taradin minkum, mutual consent. Now, everybody knows this ayat. Okay? but it has meaning on you depending on your condition. If you are looking for understanding, you will find it in every ayat. If you are blocked, you do not see anything in this ayat. Trade with mutual consent is the very rule of trading. Trade with mutual consent. What is the mutual consent in the law of legal tender? It's the destruction of mutual consent. The complete destruction. It's a monopoly given to themselves by the government. And some people, they even dare to say that the government had a monopoly on the making of the money. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. There's no exceptionality when it comes to tijaratun an taradin minkum. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't say tijaratun an taradin minkum except money. There's no exceptionality. It includes everything. And then the second question is money part of trading? Well, it's the most important part of trading. Of all the commodities, it's the most important of all, because it's the most common one. How can you, of the most common one, make an exception? We are not thinking, we're just simply reflecting what the master told us. Because he gave you the honor of being a PhD on pseudo-economics, and then you come back home and then you start teaching. And that's all there is. And then you start saying, repeating things you cannot possibly understand to your fellow citizens, just to bring them down and down and down and down. You keep doing that for 2-3 generations, it's done. The Mara generation destroyed Malaysia. But it will take time to figure that out. You have to understand the meaning of that. And and the third one is riba. Now, the issue here is that paper money, if you are very generous, is dying. And dying for dying is forbidden. And there are other conditions. For example, even if the paper money, of course, if you say it's not paper money, it doesn't break the argument, it makes it worse. Because some people say, no, but paper money doesn't represent anything. That doesn't make it easier. Yeah. It adds, it's like I didn't kill her, first of all I rape and then I kill. And then you say, then it's okay, the killing doesn't matter. This expresses the idea that as a contract, it has the rules that everything else has. For example, if I take a 20 dinar and I can go to the city of to the bank, okay, and I can go there and I can get 20 dinar from the bank. And I go and I say, okay, here's 20 dinar, give me 20 physical. What is that? Do an exchange like this. What is that? What is that? Riba al-kabir. Okay? Because Omar ibn Khattab said, and there's no exception to this, you have to go with that person to the central bank, pick it up, and then you do the exchange. If you leave his company, it's a riba and it's haram. Okay. Can you buy with this paper money gold jewelry? Gold for gold, equal for equal. Haram. Completely out of the question. Can you buy silver? No, because it has to be hand to hand. Not equal for equal, but hand to hand has to happen. The sense hand to hand. Can you pay zakat with it? It's a little bit on the side, but the question of zakat, can you pay zakat with this? No, you cannot pay zakat with dying. Again, we are generous. But if somebody says, no, it's not dying, it's even worse. If you are telling me that this is not applicable, that is not applicable to the ringgit because it doesn't represent anything, then you said, then what are you paying zakat with? It doesn't make it less, it makes it worse. Okay? But for that you have to think. And to think, you have to be free. And free is not how intelligent you are. It's not your IQ. What I have to examine if I want to know whether you think or not, is the state of your heart. The state of your heart. And we have seen very intelligent people making ridiculous mistakes. It's like, if your heart is wrong, the more intelligent you are, the worse you become. Intelligence and your education works against you. This is something to think about. Well, I think we have plenty of reasons to say paper money is haram. Okay? Now, some people start playing with this and they say, no, but it's part of riba, not part of riba. It doesn't matter. Okay? It's part of riba, it's conducive to riba because of the institutions of riba, how the institutions of riba have made it. If you think about how paper money is created, it's riba anyway. I'm not discussing that. There's still more, if you see how these ringgits come into existence as part of a debt. Okay? The question is, paper money is forbidden in Islam. Okay, and we have now jumped a little bit from discussing gold dinar into looking in having now the capacity, the resource to analyze a modern phenomenon, paper money. And then look, I don't discuss anything. Remember that in this argument, there is no, but paper money is good for the people. I don't care. I don't care whether it's good, but look, it has done good for the people. I don't care. I'm discussing freedom. And my freedom is not negotiable. You cannot come and tell me, okay, I have something good for you. Okay, and it's good because of this and this and this. And by the way, you have no choice on the matter. Because it's that last sentence that matters to me. If it is so good, let me choose. I mean, because it's so good, you should be overconfident. Just say, well, if we let the people in Malaysia choose between gold dinar and the ringgit, everybody will go to the ringgit because it's good for them. Now, if they get the shock news that everybody started going into the gold dinar, then they have to say, well, I mean, maybe it wasn't that good after all. But they don't give you that choice because they say in the first place, the matter cannot be thought. You cannot question this thing. It's like you have made an error. It's like when you go into the computer and you table something and it's an error. It doesn't give you an answer. And here is the same. If you say the gold dinar, there's an error. They don't give you an answer. They say this is a wrong question. You cannot ask these things. It's like I remember one sheikh who was saying, he speaks with the Mahdi, he said, and he kept predicting the coming of the end of the world. In the year 1999 and this and this and the other and the other. And I said, but your sheikh is saying these things. And the murid told me, but you cannot ask these things about the sheikh. You cannot say that about the sheikh. It's like he's above questioning. It's the same thing here. It's like you cannot say that about the government. The government is free from any inquiry of that kind. It's already spiritually in heaven. It's a wali of some, And if you cannot ask this question, then you cannot think. Okay, remember that we are still sitting down here. There is a few of us. There is a large crowd outside. Going gold dinar, gold dinar, gold dinar. We are this group of people, and we'll discuss tomorrow. What it takes and how you can make this thing into politics, into political discourse. But today we are only concentrated on the very, very principle of language that says gold dinar and tijaratun an taradin minkum, basics of my deen. And it's from this perspective that I can already say, I can make already a very critical analysis of very complicated, very dramatically complicated issues of my society today. We can go on the gold dinar for 3 days, but I don't think there is need. Let's try to have a larger picture of what Muamalat is. Now the third one will be, and this is again my version, but I will put here the kafila. Now the caravan. Is kafila or kafila? Ka with ku. Kafila. Kafila. Now, the kafila is important. It's an institution that it is subsidiary to the marketplace. In other words, if you don't have marketplaces, you don't have kafilas. But why do I assign such an importance to this? It's because while the marketplace represents the actual trading, the right of the people to engage in life, you know, that they don't have to become employee of somebody else, that they don't have to ask permission to somebody else in order to buy and sell or to offer their activities or their professional capacities or whatever they produce. Apart from that right, fundamental right, that you have to access the marketplace, what creates added value? The added value of the society is in the trading. And the trading, the active part of the trading, is the export. Is the getting from connecting one city to the next. And this establishment of this institution of trading, of export, in the way it was done by the people of the Amal of the Ahl al-Medina, is worth understanding, and we're going to look into it in order to try to draw some conclusions. Now, the first thing that you notice about the kafila is that it doesn't look like Indo food. Indo food is the largest export of food in Indonesia. They export 75% of all the food. It's a monopoly. I mean, they are so big, so huge, owned, of course, by Chinese who lived in Singapore, because that's what Singapore is. And like this, the kafila is owned by the people of the marketplace. It's like a guild, and we are going to come to this point later, of course, but it's like a guild of traders. Now, the word guild, there are many ways of assessing this, but the thing that you have to understand about the guilds is the fundamental part of it is that it has open access. The difference between a guild and a cooperative is that the cooperative is membership, the guild is open. Okay? So is the caravan is open. So there is not a closed circuit of people that they say this is the people who go. It's for the people of Medina. Anybody can join in. And you can join in on account of an active account of somebody who's a trader with your own goods, or you can be an agent. So in other words, you go there to actively buy and sell things, or you can go there passively as an investor to one of the Kirat agents. So all those things means there's open access. It's not a membership. Okay, it's not a corporation. Now, it's added value. On this added value of the caravan, the most important part of finance comes into place, which is kirat. And we will speak about this later because it's worth understanding. But the kafila gives life to the marketplace. You take the kafilas away and the marketplace shrinks. It becomes just a domestic, for the people of the town. But when you add the caravan, it means any market is like you network. Networking is a good idea because it's something we are very familiar with. You connect two markets with a caravan. It means the goods that they are over there cheaper, they can come here, and vice versa. The ones that are here, they go there regularly, and everybody has access to it. Whether you're a big trader or a small trader, you can participate. Whether you have money or not, you can participate. You can finance your activity through the very, very institution of kirat. The importance of kirat, and Ferdinand Brudel, you have to look at this guy. Ferdinand Brudel, French historian, and he, in his book about the Mediterranean, at the time of Philip II, he writes a commentary which is absolutely awesome. When I read it, I was so surprised that it has to be a non-Muslim who says this. He said, the key moment for the rising of the Italian states was the adoption by the Italian cities of the contract of kirat used by the Muslims in the East. That was the critical moment of expansion. And they call it commenda. the adoption of the commander. It changed everything, from being just domestic traders to become major powers. The contract, how can a contract be of that significance? Well, that's the power of Kirat. And by understanding the power of Kirat, you understand the power of the caravan, naturally. I mean, that we speak today about the significance, the architectural significance of the caravansarais and the silk route. I mean, nobody in their right mind could possibly say, no, but that doesn't matter. The silk route is fundamental to the history of the West. There will not be spaghetti without the silk route. Imagine a life without spaghetti, you know. And that is the noodles of the Chinese, you know. And they came via the Silk Route. And the big cities that they built all alongside. Imagine the caravans coming backwards and forwards from every single market, connecting to the others, in bilateral agreements. The idea of bilateral agreement is very simple to understand. The open market of Kuala Lumpur and the open market of Kota Baru. And then they say, there is a caravan every 3 months, and there is a caravan backwards to this one. You are my guest, and I am your guest. You give me these rights of freedom, of trading, of space, and I give you the reciprocal rights. That's what it is. That's why the rights of the caravan, they are collective rights. Sorry, Abdullah.
I'm sorry. Why is the Kirat so intertwined with the caravan? What is it about? Because Kirat is investment. Why kind of investment, the person receiving the investment, use that to buy goods to trade at the market? Why does he have to go somewhere else to trade those?
All right. Would you allow me to answer this question in a few minutes? Because I'm going to come to Kirat, but I will not forget. Just to follow the same line of argument. Now, and one of the things that is significant about the caravan is the solidarity of the people. A solidarity that is built on principles that we are so alien to is almost hard to understand. The principle of which is a brotherhood. It's a group of people that they go together and they say we are trading. But if one of them leaves a fault behind or a debt behind, all the other people in the caravan become responsible for that individual. So it could happen that another trader goes back to Baghdad and all his goods are seized because one member of your caravan didn't pay the debt. But nothing to do with me, but you are in the same caravan. They become all co-responsible. So where is the insurance? The insurance is all of them. So what they are trading on? They are trading on honesty. And they say, look, he came with you. He came with you, so you are responsible that he is a good guy. Don't bring into the caravan people who are thieves. It's your problem, not my problem. I trusted him because of you. Look at the way of thinking. It's a complete different way. So you become co-responsible for all the activities of everybody in your own caravan. They are your brothers. And it brings about a complete reassessment of things like, as we will see later, of collateral. Yeah? How this thing comes into place. And the collateral is your reputation, the reputation of the group. The reputation of the individual doesn't mean anything. It's the group that matters. The caravan is the group. And that is so important. The group is stronger than the individual. Again, with the kafila we can go about the caravansarais and how they do, how they operate, but it's just leave up to you to continue your own research. Number 4, Kirat. And now I answer your question. First of all, what is Kirat? Kirat is the business loan. It's a loan. It comes from card, the same word. In the Hanafis and the Shafis, they call it mudaraba. Mudaraba, which comes from darab or something, which is like traveling. Has any reference to traveling?
الضرب في الأرض.
Yeah, it's like traveling on.
Yeah.
It's a reference to the traveling, which half explains what you're saying. Is The mudaraba is an indication that the kirat was related to the caravans because of the mudaraba. The word kirat only happens in Medina. Okay, and this is, if you want to see why we are different to the other madhabs, is the adoption of a specific terminology that it was used in Medina, is how it changed with the hadith, etc. Now, the rules of mudaraba are quite fairly simple and straightforward, and almost everybody knows them. It starts with money and ends with money. Now, this is as opposed to I give you goods to sell. If I give you goods to sell, then you are my agent. Then you are liable to a fee in order to sell my goods. It's not a kirat agent. Kirat is money, starts with money. So it starts with dinar or dirham and ends with dinar and dirham. Nobody pays you in potatoes or this or the other or the other. So it's a transaction that it got dinar, a beginning at the end, and in the middle there is a business transaction. The nature of which is by the amal of the Ahl al-Medina, the practice of the people of Medina, and here Abdullah is half of my answer. By the practice of the people of Medina, because the people will argue, but there is nothing that says that you cannot practice kirat outside the caravan. Of course not. But this is what Imam Malik will say, this is not the way of doing things among us. He's not saying haram. He said, this is not how we do things. Now, when he says something like this, he's not just throwing this in just as a kind of chauvinism of Medina. He is giving you an indication of what is normal and what is not normal. And when you find something that is not normal, you should have a question mark. You have to say to yourself, this is not how the people did it. So how? Then the next question is, how did the people do it? And how did the people do it? The reflection of how did the people do it is where you start understanding the halal and haram. Normality is critical in the understanding of the amal of the Ahl al-Medina. And this distinction between this is the way of doing things in Medina, this is the way of doing things among us, or this is not the way of doing things among us, this is only Imam Malik. And this saves us from the exceptionality of the exceptionality of the exceptionality of the exceptionality that take us like a globe, out of the picture. And I still have not answered completely your question.
It was the why. I mean, obviously, I accept all of that, but it was the why wasn't it?
Why it wasn't?
Why was it always tied to the caravan? Like, what is it about the caravan which makes the kirat, but as opposed to just in the market? Like, why can't you do an investment? I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but look, think about it. I mean, what is the added value? In selling in the marketplace, when there is total freedom, what is the added value? I mean, you buy it here at 8 o'clock in the morning and sell it in the afternoon, the price is going to be more or less the same. The only thing to create an added value that it will justify an investment, it will be that you go from here to Syria and that you come back. Is intermarket. If it is intermarket, you are talking about caravans. The word mudaraba already indicates you that, hold on, these people, when they say, I'm doing a mudaraba with you, it's like my money is going to go away and come back. And this doesn't say it's haram, because your question, if formulated in that way, I have to say, no, it's halal. Okay? So I have to put a little distinction here. I'm only saying to you, and although I'm going to qualify this thing a little bit later, but as for now, the only thing I'm saying is that the normal way is to use the caravan.
Yeah.
The normal way. And then as I go along with the conditions, we may find more other reasons why we have very strong indications that this must be the way of doing it. Now, one of the things that is distinctive of the caravan, of the kirat, is no collateral. And this is, I think, is the first hadith that is mentioned in the Muwatta of Imam Malik. There's no guarantees. I lend you the money, but you have to leave something behind. You have to give me something in collateral. And then I lend you the money and do you the business and come back and exchange. That is forbidden. And Imam Malik argues that if you do something like this, then that you have put as a guarantee is part of the investment. If you do that, if you insist on a collateral, then the collateral, because it's liable of being lost, then the collateral becomes part of the investment. Do you see it? Just try to do the mental exercise of this. But the point is, there is no collateral. Now, everybody today, as practiced in the Islamic banking, they all, without exception, have collateral. Neil.
Can you just re-explain what's Qirat? What
It's a business loan in which you lend X amount of money, and if there is profit in that activity, which is generated by an agent, there are two people, investor and agent. So this provides the capital, he provides the work. But this is a loan, so in other words, he's fully responsible of what he does. He's not doing what he tells him to do. For example, that could be the case of saying, I want you to buy this and do that and then come back. No, he's not saying that. He has no saying in that. Because if he does, then this is not Qirat. So they are independent. He just invests on this man and trusts on this man, he's going to do a business and return with profit. He could say, according to us, I don't want you to trade with this and this and this. But you cannot say you have to trade with this and this. So I can say, for example, I don't want you to trade in tobacco because I don't like it. Okay? But I cannot tell you you have to trade in shoes. It's up to him. You see the difference?
Yeah.
And so the agent then goes and basically takes the money, buys something and sells it. And the result of these two transactions is either loss or profit, or the same. In the case of profit, the profit is shared between agent and investor according to the percentage that has been agreed in the contract. That could be 50-50, 40-60, 30-70, etc., etc. And in the case of loss, is entirely absorbed by the investor. Now, this is where you have to do a little bit of thinking here, if you are looking for a justification. What I concluded looking into this matter 25 years ago is that the agent is losing all his work, in fact. He's gone there, he's the one who's gone to Syria, come back, he earns nothing. So his loss is actually 100%, while the investor still retains whatever is left is for him. He doesn't have any right to anything other than the cost of the transportation, etc., etc. This is all included, this is part of the loss. But that doesn't include any salary or any benefits for him. And these are the two conditions. And the third one is no time. The fourth one is no timing. Now, this is, nobody follows this, but Imam Malik says, Qirat is not for timing. Nobody wants to read it, nobody cares. But it's no timing. So in other words, you cannot say, I give you this money for 3 months. Because who knows? It's until the completion of the business. It can take 2 hours. You know, I may just get something, send it somewhere and sell it outside Kuala Lumpur for 3 times the price. Or it can take 3 months. It's until the completion of the business, not until timing. Timing doesn't mean anything here. Now, the people say, well, then the agent will take advantage over the investor and hold on to the money. He has no advantage in that because he cannot use any of the money of the profit of the business until he pays the investor first. So if there is any profit, he goes, they sit down together, they said, okay, your initial money, bang. And then this is the profit, 100. So 50 for you, 50 for me. He cannot touch his money until he pays the investor and pays the other. He does not have any right. So it is in the interest of the agent to conclude it as quick as possible. He is under pressure, in fact, to do it as quick as possible. There is another factor, is that since this is done without collateral, the only thing that you hold to obtain a second Qirat is your reputation to good behavior. In a society like this, you can cheat, but only one. Maybe 2. But that's it, you're done. You don't behave well, you better go to another city, because in this city you're done. Okay, and this is very strong. I mean, one of the things that, for example, is more commented about the marketplaces in Islam, for example, in Al-Andalus, is how severe, how meticulous the muhtasibs were. They were feared, because if these people said you have done wrong and they got you, not only you get, flogging, chopping your hand, or crucifixion, that full extent of things, but you are finished. Imagine what is like one of the favorite things in Al-Andalus, apparently, is that when the cheating of the weights, okay, and when they caught somebody, normally somebody from the city that he thought he was perhaps a little bit clever, he will be flogged by all the traders and anyone standing by. He was, they put something in the feet in order to slow him down, and everybody was with a cane, just flagging, all the way through the streets of the market. Now that's not fun, but certainly your face is done. You cannot sell a potato for the rest of your life. So your reputation is everything. That the people will die for the reputation? Yes. Honor was life itself. You say, I'm a thief, I kill you. Okay? Tomorrow at 12 o'clock, bring your pistol and we solve the problem. It was that important. I mean, who cares about reputation today? Who cares about honor today? Nobody. I mean, these politicians should be out and finished. No, they carry on. They can continue doing business. All the businessmen, look at the guys that you have there. Because the bank will lend money. When the bank lends money, as a parallel, it lends money on account of whether you have money in the bank or not. So you can be a crook, but you will be benefit from the credit that in fact is generated by society, as we know, and the bank delivers to you. Just because you have money, so money goes to money. So honor, zero value. While in the Islamic society,
Honor.
without the collateral, so the non-collateral is vital. It's not a defect. It's not that kirat is bad because it doesn't have collateral. It's the key to the value of this, because it means that honor, you have to have honor. And if you have honor, the people, they will make you rich. Behave well. Okay.
It's different. So you find that the good people have money and
And the bad people don't get a penny. Okay? So a society that if you have kirat, this society will promote honesty. If you have banks, it will promote dishonesty. As simple as that. Okay, and the fifth point is the guilds. Now, the question of the guilds is not, do you want to see it in Medina? You have to have a strong eye, because it's still a very small city. You have to go back to Baghdad and Damascus, where you want to see the guilds information. You have some indications by the fiqh. Like, for example, shirkat and the guilds go like caravans and kirat. Because Imam Malik says conditions of shirkat, that they say they have to be in the same roof, they have to be in the same city. Yeah? And they have to be in the same work, they have to be doing more or less the same labor. They are co-responsible. So it is like, it's an indication, at least an indication, that in those days, people of the same trade, they will come and that they associate together. The guild is a larger association of the people of the same trade. And what they share not only the knowledge that passed through the generations, but they share means of production. This is, in my understanding, the key to the guilds. Two things I have to say about the guilds. Number one is open-ended. Open-ended. Open-ended meaning they are not a cooperative. The cooperative is close-ended, is membership. But the guild is open. So anyone who is a baker, as long as he qualifies, okay, it doesn't mean everybody can make bread. You have to qualify. If you don't know, you will be tested. Okay? And if you don't know how to do bread, you don't know how to do bread, finished. And but for example, a member of the guild of another city can come to Kuala Lumpur and it will be admitted. I understand that the Chinese guilds, even today in Malaysia, operate in this way. So if a carpenter comes from Penang, it will be admitted by the Guild of Carpenters here in Kuala Lumpur. Something that we don't even have the resemblance of understanding. That's why the Chinese, because they come from an urban culture. The Malays are rural culture. They have no trace in the back. You cannot go back and see this thing in the campo. You don't have it. If you want to understand it, you have to go back to an Arab environment. Or the Chinese, which is within the context of Asia, clearly the greatest and richest civilization we have. They had guilds. They had guilds way before the Romans had guilds. You know, what it seems is that we can speak about the guilds as a natural institution. It's a natural way of organizing production, that the people come together naturally. If you leave them alone, they come together. Why? Because it makes sense. It makes sense for them to work together. And somebody who's outside the guild is going to be harder for him to succeed than the one who's in the guild. The second point is the means of production. That the means of production, not all the means of production, like for example, if we talk about carpenters, well, the hammer and the saw and the thing belongs to you. But the sawmill that cuts the big pieces and some big equipment, it will be owned by the guild, typically. So that key infrastructure is, instead of creating monopolies, as the banking system has created, the money is given by loan, collected from society, given to one individual. He buys the machine and then he employs everybody. So you become an employee. But within the guild, it creates equal conditions for everybody. Okay, the fact that some industries will die, I mean, there is an argument here, like for example, there's a famous case of the guilds and how the guilds are bad. In Paris, they had the last guild of nails. You know, nails in those days were done one by one. You know, imagine the cost. And the British go and they do these machines, you know. It's just kind of massive production. So the people of Paris had to pay a premium in order to keep the Guild of Nails happy. They could not import nails from outside. Okay, that would be the bad side of it. Okay, obviously that practice was already dead, and that technical evolution can happen. There is no question on the matter. The key is who owns that new machine. You know, that doesn't justify that. Therefore, then not only the machine is good, but also to be owned by one individual is good. Aha, hold on a minute. There is a distinction. There is a distinction between the machine is good, that can produce these nails at a significant lower price, to the fact that you have to convince me at the same time, and that machine has to be owned by one guy. Because that second part, I have difficulty in understanding. At least there is not a logical reason why it should be. And given the fact that money should be in the possession of the people, it's more likely that the guild is going to be engaged in the buying of this thing than an individual. But how did it happen in the old days? With banking. Look at what the banks do. Collect from everybody, give to allocate the cash to one individual. He buys the machine, everybody's employee. That's it. End of the game. Okay, and then identifying technology and capitalism is one of the defects of the critique, the modern critique against capitalism. So other people say, they say good things about capitalism that belong to technology. They say no, because we have electricity thanks to capitalism. No, we have electricity thanks to Thomas Edison. And equally we give bad name to technology because of capitalism. They say no, but technology has driven the world almost to self-destruction. But no, this is really the way capitalism has pushed technology in a particular direction. So I think these are two things that is worth understanding in separate domains, for they have different virtues and problems. And that the guilds, that the existence of the guilds is natural. Again, natural, something natural. What is the evidence? The evidence is that every society, pre-capitalist society, without exception, before Islam and after Islam, without exception, they had guilds. So at least you have to stop for a second and say, wait a minute. there must be something here, okay? Secondly, is that all the Islamic societies, without exception, they had guilds. For example, all the big cities of Islam, Cairo, Aleppo, Damascus, Istanbul, Isfahan, Bukhara, go there and you find the organization of production is by guilds, without exception. Okay? When the British come to Egypt, they found the society organizing guilds. The first thing they do, they abolish the guilds. Beautiful. And that abolition of the guilds, it was just part of modernity and never was questioned or put back or even looked upon. And today, there are some Europeans that they are looking into the question of the guilds and with interest. And typically, and there was one professor from Sweden, and I wrote a book, The Return of the Guilds, and he made a conference called The Return of the Guilds in Utrecht University. It's still there, and it's worth downloading the papers because they're still available. I just did it just a few months ago. They were still there. And please read all the papers, and please read the one of the Egyptian professor. And everybody's saying the guilds are amazing, and the Egyptian, he completely misunderstands the whole thing. And he's the only one, and it shows you the mentality. You know, the guilds are a thing of the past, but in saying so, he says, they are good because, look, the British got rid of it. Thanks to the British, we got rid of it, and once we got rid of it, we progressed. Unbelievable stuff. When everybody was saying there, we have not looked into the guilds properly, because they represent a level of equality and development and innovation unprecedented. The only thing that I saw in those papers that they all had in common is that they said the only thing we don't like about the guilds is that they're a monopoly. But this is a mistake, conceptual mistake. It's like saying, you know, the market of Medina was a monopoly. Everybody has to buy and sell in the marketplace. Yes, but it's open. Yeah, everybody has to be, if you are a carpenter, you have to be part of the guild, or otherwise you don't get a job. But it's open. But it's open. That little bit, but it's open means there is no monopoly. It's saying, if you want to play, you have to play according to the rules of the game. That's all it says. That the marketplace can never be qualified as a monopoly. Neither is the guild, because the fundamental condition, and this can be altered. I can also say if somebody comes and says, A, what do you mean that the guilds were open-ended? There was 300 people and they didn't allow anybody else. It's true. It happened. And it is true about the souk too. That, you know, they should expand eternally, but they didn't. Occasionally the people of the town, they said, no, we don't want anybody else. You know, numerous clausos, 800 stalls, were making a lot of money. And they deter, and they made difficult the expansion of the marketplace. And they ended up with what you will call stalls. These things happen, but you have to distinguish sickness from the natural phenomenon. Right? It's like saying Islam, therefore, if you try to analyze Islam by what is happening in Saudi Arabia today, then you will say it's not fair. Well, it's the same thing with the guilds. There are sickness of the guilds, and almost the same sickness of the guild is the sickness of the marketplace, which is when it stops becoming open to everybody. It's the same thing with the guilds. And here we have an outline of 5 points about Muamalat, 5 words that they are sufficient to give you an insight of a different type of society, a different model of economics that clearly is centered around trading, that has institutions that they are a radical critic of the modern world. And then from tomorrow onwards, we will analyze how this thing can be implemented and how can this become a political discourse of the future.
Amin.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. No questions today because everybody is falling apart, including me. You heard this thing a million times.
Yeah. I keep tuning in more in more deeper in.
The thing is that it doesn't matter how I call it master classes. I don't have time to. You cannot go deeper. You need really more time. But I mean, you need like a month or something to be able to go into the text, to be able to look into the examples, to be able to go that. Or you have to get a theme. For example, the souk, the marketplaces, and just go over the marketplaces for like a week or so. Maybe that's what we should do. Take themes, monochrome, monographic, and we just go deep into the matter.
You can give us a book title for each one?
A book?
Yeah, some.
I wish I could.
I heard you was talking about a Spanish professor in the university who did a book.
That is fantastic, that book. It's only in Spanish. Can you read Spanish? It's like French.
Yeah. Wow.
You probably can read it.
What's the title?
Is The Lord of the Souk.
Oh, is that this one?
Not that big.
This thick?
No, it's that thick, it's red, and is approximately this size. It's this kind of size.
There was one on the markets that they had.
No, that's another one. That's beautiful. No, this is a book written by a man called Pedro Chalmeta, who is a terrible person, but a wonderful scholar, who has done the most profound Spanish. He's dedicated his life. He's not written any other book. He's written some other things, but totally irrelevant. Nobody cares. But he's written the most extraordinary account of the markets of Al-Andalus. And in doing so, he struck gold, because it's a subject that nobody has looked into.
Can't we get someone to translate it? I mean, all these Spanish.
It should be. I mean, that book needs reorganizing, because it's written like somebody who's a lunatic. He just puts everything in total disorder, and then it needs certain things need assessment. The good thing is that he doesn't make any judgment, so he just translates like an animal, which is good. That's the good thing about him. He keeps the original Arabic, he keeps the original terminology, which is fantastic. So it's a very good book. I mean, it's a little bit more than that. It's somebody who has to read that book, go back to the sources, and write the revolutionary account. It's a fantastic book. I mean, one of the things, for example, that he, in passing by, he analyzes is one thing that's so amazing. I think I told you one of these times. In that the cities of Al-Andalus, there was two major institutions in the city. One is the Alcazaba, which is the castle, where the ruler lives. And then there is the souk, which is, in those days, is part of the Imaret, is where the Qadi is, the institution of the Qadi is within the complex of the marketplace, and the Muhtasib, who is there just checking everything out. So the market and the Alcazaba, right? Now, the rulers keep changing in Al-Andalus quite continuously, especially during the times of the Taifas. So, the cousin comes in and kills the uncle and takes over the city of Valencia. And then, 3 years later, another nephew comes in and said, no, you are not the right one, and kills this one and comes in. And the Alcazaba, the people in the Alcazaba keep changing, and the people of town don't care. So, and the reflection is that the figures of the Qadi, they have a great longevity. So the Qadi will last almost until he dies. But the number of rulers keep changing continuously. Now the reflection is like this, like the people in Valencia. When they saw the armies outside, they didn't even bother to go to the Alcazaba and fight this guy, I don't care. Because, the institutions were so solid, that it doesn't matter who came into power, nothing changed the rules of the market. And it was so powerful and so profound and so admirable that when the Spanish come and they conquer the land bit by bit, as you know, in the process, they copy the laws of the market word by word, comma by comma. They don't change anything at all, because in their view, it cannot be improved. The laws of the market of Al-Andalus. That is how tremendous, how powerful it is. And that gives us also an insight of things that they are very relevant to us. We care so much about who is in power, but in fact what they are doing is they're stealing in our marketplace. And we say, no, I don't care. Don't give me do whatever you like. I don't want political democracy. I want economic democracy. I want to rule in the marketplace. The Alcazaba for you. It doesn't matter.
So we cannot keep the shops anymore? If there's a marketplace, the shops will be...
No need. It's replaced by something similar to shops. I mean, for example, when you when you go to the celebrated big markets of Aleppo, this and the other, what you find is that there are sections where the expensive goods are traded in something that look like arches or in a small infrastructure that it resembles a shop. Normally, the storage, which is the part for which you will be paying money for, is either up or in the back of the arch. And the front, if it is occupied, will be given to the same person regularly. So in other words, all you have to do is to lift it up and then move the stock goods. So you have like a shop, but it's not a shop because first of all, you don't own it. And if you don't come within the established time of the marketplace, somebody else will come in front and they will sell from there. So this is in order to guarantee and yet provide with the necessary service for the people in the marketplace.
Sheikh, would you say that from the definition of kirat, where the investor absorbs the losses and so on, there is no need for insurance or Islamic insurance?
That's how Islam does. Yes, it's very, and the reason why, I mean, for example, if the agent has to participate in the losses, then well, it's not like participating in the losses. If you think about it, you put X amount of money, and this X amount of money is wasted. What you get is what is left. Okay, so it's not really a loss. It's only a loss in relation to the total amount. But let's say, for example, that you say then the agent will have to contribute to that loss, and he will have to pay also 50%. Okay, and then the logic is that if that money, if the agent has to have this money, almost like a guarantee in case that there is a loss, this money should be part of the investment. What it can happen is that the investor, together with the agent can be both investor and agent. There's no reason why not.
Is that the rationale why there is no Islamic insurance?
But even if he is part of the capital, and this is how you see it with more clarity, if he is part of the capital, it will be treated identical. It will be exactly in the same circumstances. So the principle, what it seems to highlight is that in trading, in order to be fair, this sharing of trading, it has to be the investor. The investor is not entitled to the labor. It's only entitled to the profit. And if there is no profit, he doesn't get it. As simple as that. And there is no more.
In the guilds, the means of production were waqf.
Waqf, yes, I forgot to say that. The means of production in the guild are waqf.
So where does the modern day takaful insurance come from?
You will see tomorrow when we speak a little bit more about the political meaning of this, that everything starts getting hot.
Yeah, politics.
Yeah. How do you then interpret this in a manner that is conducive to changes? How can we analyze economic situations, crises, etc.? Okay, 2 days more, inshallah. Bismillah wa barakatuh. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-rahmanir rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghayril maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun 'alal mursalin. Walhamdulillah.